as it is with communists, they want to have their cake and eat it too. And the ACLU is exemplifying this perfectly. They sued the Trump administration over the Birthright Citizenship executive order, and in doing so, may be about to end abortion forever. Now, maybe not literally, and the probability is probably very low. But on Friday, with the Supreme Court basically saying Donald Trump can executive order the birthright, citizenship, whatever, for now, we're not answering the merits to that. It's created this temporary space where the Trump admin is saying we are not going to grant citizenship to the children of those here illegally. I think even legal immigrants too. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But it's mostly about illegal immigrants, people who are here illegally or whose fathers are not lawful citizens or lawfully present. The ACLU, in their argument, said that they must certify a class of persons for this suit because of the Supreme Court ruling. And that class of persons is all future persons. I kid you not. Potential humans being represented before this court. They mean the unborn babies. Get legal representation. Okay, so basically, they're so the Supreme Court says universal injunctions are out. You cannot apply a district court's ruling to the entirety of the country. And that's kind of obvious because the way that these liberals are trying to set it up, like Sotomayor, Kagan, Jackson, they're basically saying Jackson's was nuts because she was just like district courts dictate over the executive branch. And every other justice was like, no. But it was funny. At least you got Kagan and Sotomayor being like, well, if the district courts can't issue these injunctions, I mean, then how do we, Yep. It was funny. There's a viral video where apparently just a couple years ago, Kagan was arguing you can't have lower court judges blocking the executive branch from executive authority nationwide. And it's kind of obvious. It's kind of obvious, right? Check this out. So here's what happens. Donald Trump says, we're going to stop birthright citizenship. Nobody gets any. And then basically anybody after 30 days from signing the order, which was right when he got in office, which is February 20th, you will not get automatic citizenship by birthright if your parents were not here legally. And I think that actually makes the most sense. Now, everyone's trying to debunk this, but I will debunk the debunking. But we'll get to that. Donald Trump says this. And so what first happens is like 3 people sue. And then a district court judge says, I hereby say Trump can't do this nationwide. But we have circuits for a reason. There are jurisdictions by which judges have authority. And then you go up to the higher courts, and the Supreme Court then is the entirety of the country. It makes sense. The reason why district courts can't issue nationwide injunctions is obvious, because that means I would sue to a court in West Virginia, living up in the mountains, and I'd say, well, gosh darn it, I need me a machine gun because I got a bunch of feral hogs. And then they're going to say, good point, Cletus, and they're going to bang their gavel, and they're going to say, you can have a machine gun. And then what? And they're going to put a universal injunction on the NFA, and then some dude in New York City is like, I'm going to go buy a machine gun? No. The courts in West Virginia addressing a singular West Virginia issue is going to be for West Virginia or the circuit they're in. It makes no sense. Well, let's expound upon this. While this judge says, why can't you have a machine gun? You got a feral hog problem. And then in New York, a judge goes, no, we don't have any feral hogs here. All guns are banned. And then you've got 2 simultaneous judges simultaneously saying guns are both banned and not banned. So which one is it going to be? That's stupid. There's a reason why the system was built the way it is. The Supreme Court, there's nowhere else to go. They're one court. They say, it's it. That's it. With district courts, there's 677. It's the stupidest thing imaginable. But anyway, so they say no universal injunctions, and what do we get? The ACLU then says, okay, we will file a class action, and because the way it works is one person suing, the courts can only grant relief to those that are suing. That's what the Supreme Court said. So the ACLU says, then we'll make a class for a class action suit and sue on behalf of, quote, all current and future persons who are born on or after February 20th, 25. Okay, that means somebody who's going to be born on March 15th, 2092 is represented in this. I kid you not. They're arguing that humans that don't yet exist are part of a class of people that have legal standing to sue and be represented before the Supreme Court. Okay. Look, I'm not a staunch pro-lifer in the way most Christian conservatives are, but I do think abortion is wrong, it's bad, and I think it's a very difficult issue to morally navigate. I hate getting into the whole argument, but for the sake of this, my position is largely nobody should be getting abortions. I don't know how we have a situation of a medical practice that involves requiring court orders. So like in the event that a woman is suffering from some kind of medical issue, be it rare, the challenge then is the doctor is saying you will need an emergency court order for us to perform this because it will terminate the life of the baby. Now, I think there's ways to navigate that in further restricting abortion while making sure the medical practices are okay. But the solutions they've offered up are really bad, like 3 doctors must be present. And yeah, I mean, maybe that's fine or something. They all can concur. Maybe that's the compromise, I guess. But at any rate, as far as the liberals go with lying, cheating, and stealing for power, I laugh at the game they are now playing and the door they have just opened up. Future persons, huh? Okay. Then I want to see every single conservative and every single pro-life group right now file with the exact same class. I mean, look, it says, in this class action, class representative plaintiff seeks to represent the following proposed class. All current and future persons who were born on or after February 20th, 2025, where that person's mother was unlawfully present in the U.S. and the person's father was not a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident at the time of said person's birth, or that person's mother's presence in the U.S. was lawful but temporary, and the person's father was not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of said person's birth, as well as the parents, including expectant parents of those persons. Okay, including the parents in the class action. Every conservative pro-life group should copy that text perfectly, literally saying that, yes, for the unlawfully here, for literally illegal immigrants. And I'll explain, but with that exact class, file a suit saying you can't kill future persons, saying we seek to represent all current and future persons who are born on or after, making the argument that they have a right to life, to be free from third-party decisions to terminate their life without adequate due process or just illegal outright, as it would constitute assisted suicide. And watch them squirm and scream and argue, you can't have that class. That's the play. The reason why, some might be saying, well, but you should have it include all people. Right. Politically, yes. What I'm saying is copy their class verbatim, because I guarantee you they'll come out and argue against that class. They will say, no, that can't be a class of people because they don't exist. They're not really people. Unborn babies aren't humans yet. You can't even tell the difference between an elephant fetus and a human fetus. And then say, fair point. I guess you can't have a class of people. You can't sue, and Trump can end birthright citizenship. Or they say, fine, we agree, future persons have a right to be represented in court. And then you can say, future persons having legal standing as confirmed by this court, Let's roll, baby. You can't kill someone before they've gone to court. Well, I mean, you can't kill people, period. So this is an incredible admission by the ACLU and the left on the issue of abortion. They can't have their cake and eat it too. Either you get birthright citizenship or you don't. The Trump administration has found a masterful play here in that you can't sue on behalf of the unborn while the unborn have no rights. And I love this. I love this so much. The perfect 14th Amendment question. Let's roll, baby. The 14th. Let me pull it up here for you guys from congress.gov. The 14th Amendment. So we got this article from Politico. That's like, Trump is wrong about birthright citizenship, and history proves it. And in it, they basically say, now we know, they argued, the children of immigrants and foreigners would not be citizens, but they debated and then ultimately decided in United States v. Wong Kim Ark that children of immigrants are citizens. Okay, let me debunk all of this stupid nonsense and get to the point. They say that in a key exchange, Senator Edgar Cohen of Pennsylvania fretted that the amendment would expose the United States to mass demographic upheaval, specifically by making immigrant children citizens. He worried particularly about gypsy immigrants, that's what it says, it's offensive, in his home state, and a small but growing population of Chinese immigrants in California. Now, what Politico wonderfully leaves out is that while they say, see, they ultimately agreed. That quote, the children born here of Mongolian parents shall be declared by the Constitution of the United States to be entitled to civil rights and equal protection before the law with others. Okay. So they say, we know they meant for this to be the case, which is exactly why 40 years later they had to have or 30 years later, they had to have a Supreme Court case about it. Duh. The argument that the framers of the 14th knew exactly what it was going to be and argued for it excludes the entirety of the debate, cherry-picks single portions of it, and then, in its beautiful logical fallacy, fails to explain why it had to go to the Supreme Court in the first place. If it was clear to the framers and the intention was set, everybody understood at that time that it meant Wong Kim Ark wouldn't have needed to have happened, that this kid born of Chinese immigrant parents was a citizen. No, they debated it for decades after the fact. And it is fair to argue that U.S. v. Wong Kim Ark was decided wrongly, as we have overturned Supreme Court precedent in the past. That being said, I love this meme that's going around where it's like, my neighbor's cow wandered into my field and gave birth. The calf is now mine. It's like, no, neither the cow nor the calf belong to you. You can be like, get off my property. So here's the best part. The 14th Amendment, how it both applies to immigrants and the unborn. I'm loving it. Let's play. And I'm going to say it again. You can't have one or the other. You can't have both. You can only have one or the other. So check it out. It says, let's make it a little bigger. All persons born or naturalized in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Let's stop. The argument largely with birthright citizenship is when you say subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Foreign-born individuals are not subject to the jurisdiction thereof in the United States because they owe allegiance to a foreign land. So they are not. Now, on to the next part. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of laws. Here's where it gets good. All persons, okay? Cut that out. All persons born or naturalized and subject to the jurisdiction are citizens. Ergo, person and citizen mean different things. Person applies to a human life entity. Citizen is a qualification upon a human life entity. So everyone is a person. Not all persons are citizens. A person becomes a citizen upon certain criteria. It then says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Okay, that means if you're a human life entity, a person, and you have qualified to be a citizen, then no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge your privileges or immunities. However, semicolon, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Now, the 14th Amendment makes clear persons and citizens are different things. And that being said, the question then is, are the unborn persons? Well, interestingly, in the ACLU's lawsuit, it says future persons who are born on or after February 2025. Now, hold on there a gosh darn minute. You see, they're trying to make an argument. The argument is you are not a person. You're a future person, implying you will not be a person until you are born. Okay. However, They're doing that. They wrote future persons intentionally because otherwise they'd be just instantly admitting that if they said persons born on or after, the implication is that they can't be deprived of life, as the 14th Amendment says. But you see, here's where the argument comes in. Does a future person have legal standing to be represented in court? That's all that matters. The argument is no. For the conservatives, they say the unborn are persons. End of story. For the liberals are saying, no, they're future persons. Okay, well, then they can't be represented in court because future persons may be deprived life, liberty, property without due process of law. That's been their argument the whole time. That if a baby may become an unborn may become a person in the future, well, they can kill it because it's not protected by the 14th or by any other law. Okay. Well, you used to open up a whole can of worms, baby. That's why I say the response now from the right should be, let's go. Let's roll. Seek to represent the exact class identically for the purpose of not being killed. And here's the kicker. The argument from the left is these people can be represented in court. They have legal standing. The right can then argue the exact same thing and say, how can you grant legal standing to a class in this country that are not persons? That's the first question. Because then, someone's going to come out and say, I seek to represent cows. They're not persons. And they'll say, but they have to at least be capable of being persons later on. And cows can never become persons. Agreed. The unborn with the potential to become persons now are granted legal standing to sue to prevent their life, liberty, or property from being deprived. Now, of course, the unborn don't have property and their liberties are constrained as they are currently inside someone else's body, but they do have life. And the argument is as such. If you grant legal standing, you cannot kill that person. It's the strangest thing. To grant legal standing to someone is at bare minimum. We'll put it this way. If they accept this class at bare minimum, every single attempt at an abortion can be sued and barred and face an injunction if this class is granted. That means the right need only file a lawsuit anytime anyone tries to have an abortion and say, on behalf of this future person who we know, based on ACLU v. US, future persons have a right to be represented in court, and I will sue on their behalf just like the ACLU did. And then request an injunction. And here's the funny thing. The stupidity here is, first, I think they just won't get the class. But if they do, what ends up happening is some woman goes for an abortion, pro-life group sues, gets an injunction, or they get blocked. Let's say it's Colorado. They say, we're going to block that abortion. And then the court then says, no, we're not going to do that. So they file an emergency appeal to a higher court who says, hold on, this question needs to be answered because of the precedent set in ACLU v. U.S. government. We're putting an injunction on that abortion. The doctor can't perform it. This could ban abortion nationwide, or at least create a legal roadblock that stops them from anyone from ever being able to have one. Or they can't certify the class of future persons. And that means Donald Trump can revoke birthright citizenship. It'll be interesting. I don't know. Whatever. I'll leave it there. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Stay tuned. We got more coming up for you today. Slow news week. It's the 4th of July, but thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next segment.